start before you feel ready. If you just identify your niche, if you identify that problem that you genuinely care about, your motivation will stay strong even when challenges come.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Spark Buddies podcast. I'm your host, Esther. Today, I'm speaking with Nick, a 16-year-old entrepreneur and the host of the Trading Card Playbook, a podcast focused on sports cards, financial literacy, and market strategy. He's interviewed collectors, shop owners, and entrepreneurs, and built a platform available across major streaming services. Alongside, Nick is also the founder of Heat Squad, a student-led nonprofit with 18 volunteers supporting 14 senior centers across the Boston area, helping seniors develop essential technology skills. So, Nick, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name's Nick Kalra. I'm from Milton, Massachusetts, up in the Northeast. I'm 16. I'm a sophomore. And some of the projects I've been working on that I'd love to discuss today are my podcast. My podcast is called the Trading Card Playbook. And I also operate my own nonprofit organization called the Heat Squad. Heat stands for Helping the Elderly Advance in Technology. So really excited to be on today, Esther.
Yeah, those are really cool. So I just want to start off with your podcast. So what is your podcast about and what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, actually, great question. So my podcast is called the Trading Card Playbook, and it's about the intersection of sports cards, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship. And the difference between my podcast and other podcasts out there is it's not just about collecting, it's about decision making, markets, and how values work in a niche industry. And my podcast, it all really started from my interest in sports cards. So I got into the sports card hobby actually on a trip to Martha's Vineyard, a family vacation. And on this family vacation, my dad stumbled upon a card store, and he came home that day, and he's like, "Nick, let's go check out this card store. You'll never believe it, but I found one." And Martha's Vineyard, it's a place where you go on vacations, and it's not known for a place where you find cards. And when we walked into this card store, I noticed that they were selling a pack of cards for $30. And $30, it seems expensive for trading cards, but this pack, since I like to look at prices online, it's actually worth $75 online. So in the moment, we purchased one pack at the store. And when we walked out, I told my dad, like, you can sell this pack online for $75. And just like that, I got into the sports card hobby. And from there, I noticed that most content in the hobby is focused on hype. And that's where I created the Trading Card Playbook. And the Trading Card Playbook really explores financial literacy within the sports card hobby. And that's the gap that inspired me to really start this podcast.
Where can we listen to your podcast?
Yeah, so you can find the Trading Card Playbook on almost all major platforms. So the platform I used to publish my podcast is RSS, and I'll publish my episodes on RSS, and that'll distribute all my episodes to all the major platforms. So you could find it on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and I try to make it accessible everywhere. So anybody who's interested in the hobby can listen to my show. And I'm also trying to create short clips of my podcast on social media like Instagram, YouTube, just like what you're doing with Spark Buddies.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so are your episodes mostly research based or do you have, people on to talk about their experiences?
Yeah, so great question. And for my guests on my podcast, I mainly invite local card shop owners, collectors, and entrepreneurs. And I love bringing on people who have real experience building something, like whether it's their own store or presence in the hobby. And how I find these people is I go to local card shows in the area. So there'll be some ads online. You can look on Google, sports card shows near you. At these shows, I really try to make connections with people and pitch to them that I'm working on this project and I'd really love to have a conversation with them. And on on my podcast, I really dive into how the entrepreneurs and local card owners really got into the hobby and what advice they would give to young people just like us.
Yeah, and so you said you go and you directly just pitch yourself. So how did you build that confidence to pitch yourself, or is it just something that you've always had?
Yeah, so I started this podcast back in January of 2025. In January, I was not the most outgoing person. It really took time to just build the confidence and build those small talk skills that that are needed to pitch to people to just take time out of their day to come on your podcast. It took a lot of time and just to build those communication skills to get get people on my show, and then ultimately the reward is a lot is very nice because I get to have these conversations with these local owners, and I get to learn from them and their advice, and then post it on all these major platforms and get it out there to the public.
No, definitely same for me. We used to be really introverted, but with Spark Buddies, I really had to push myself. So you kind of got into this, but what problem were you trying to solve when you started the trading card playbook, and how did you find that problem?
Yeah, so yeah, I got into this a little bit earlier, but I noticed that with young collectors at card shows, they're mainly making decisions on buying cards based on hype. And I noticed that there needs to be more financial literacy into making those decisions when to buy, sell, all strategic decisions when it comes to selling cards. The hobby can be exciting, but it's also very speculative. And because I was constantly checking prices online and seeing this stuff at card shows, that I noticed there was a lack of education and financial literacy content, and that's where the trading card playbook was a perfect fit. Bringing in financial literacy into the sports card hobby is more niche, and you don't really see other podcasts really about the intricacy of both of those topics. So that's really how the trading card playbook really started.
On more of the technical side, what were the first steps you took to really turn this idea into a podcast?
So the first thing that I did to start my podcast was identifying my niche. So I didn't just want to make another podcast like you see online. I want to really make my podcast on strategy and learning. And as any other podcaster, I know you do a lot of preparation before your episodes and just marketing and getting to know your guests. Then I outlined my episodes. I reached out to my guests, and then I just started recording. And I went from there, and I focused on learning from each episode that I recorded, and I continued to learn from my guests, and then it's really just gone from there.
For sure. And what tools were most helpful in starting your podcast? What do you record with, or do you meet in person, or any editing tools?
Yeah, so for recording, I use Zoom. I'll use Zoom to extract the audio from my podcast. So my podcast, it's an audio podcast. You don't actually see my face during the podcast. And that's how I get the audio is from Zoom. And then for editing, I'll use CapCut. I'll during my actual episodes, it's just the interview, and then when I'm actually editing my podcast, I'll do a little introduction at the beginning and add a conclusion, some analysis of the episodes, and then I'll publish it to RSS, and then that gets distributed to all the major platforms. And then what I'm trying to do is create shorter form content and try to upload little snippets of my episodes on YouTube, Instagram, and get into that type of stuff.
And for your podcast, so you mentioned how there's marketing and, obviously interviewing. So do you have a team to handle all of that, or do you do all of it on your own?
Yeah, so I do it all on my own. That's just how I started, and getting these guests, it's been practice. It really takes time to just get to know and just present yourself, and that's mainly how that all started.
Now I want to get into Heat Squad. I find it's really interesting, and I find it's just like a really, I want to say, beautiful organization. So let's start off with, what is Heat Squad?
Yeah, so Heat Squad, Heat stands for Helping the Elderly Advance in Technology. And Heat Squad, it's a student-led nonprofit organization where my team of volunteers help seniors with their technology needs through one-on-one support, workshops, and presentations. And the Heat Squad, it really started over just my grandma just consistently needed help with technology, and she didn't really know how to use YouTube and find YouTube videos. So she was always asking me for her technology needs, and her problems, they were all basic technology skills like sending email, sending text messages, taking pictures. And after consistently helping my grandma with these things, I realized that maybe other seniors out there would need help with these same skills like my grandma did. And that's where I turned helping my grandma first into volunteering at my first senior center. And at my first senior center, I noticed that there was a lot of demand and traction, and a lot of people needed help with the same things like my grandma. And that's really how the Heat Squad came to be.
So you found that hole in the market through, personal experience. And I guess, so what were the first actions you took to turn that idea into something real?
Yeah, so So it really all started from my grandma's story and then actually reaching out to that first senior center. And how I reached out to that first senior center, I reached out through my school network. That's how I got the contact information. Then I drafted up a nice email, tried to make it as professional as possible. And I offer that the services are completely free. We're trying to eliminate financial barriers with the Heat Squad. And after starting those sessions at the first senior center, it was very high. I average about 5 seniors coming per hour at the senior center. I've been volunteering there for over a year now. And from there, I continued to reach out to other senior centers. And then that's when I started recruiting volunteers. And then it's taken off from there.
Yeah, so I guess you recruited volunteers. So how did you initially build your team? Is there an application process for that? And how big is your team now?
Yeah, so my volunteer team, I recruit volunteers who are patient and genuinely interested in helping seniors, and I have an application on my Heat Squad website, so I'll post up flyers at local high schools. I'll email local high school volunteer coordinators, and they'll end up spreading the word about the Heat Squad to their school. They'll put up the application that's on my website in their newsletter or newspaper, and then that's how I can really get the word out. And then once I know who's interested in helping the seniors, I'll assign them to specific senior centers who have contacted in advance. And currently, my team consists of 18 volunteers, and we help 14 senior centers, and this is all across the Boston area.
Wow. And so for this one, so you have a team, and do you have any business aspects that they have to manage? Not only, helping out the seniors, but like marketing or operations?
Yeah, so for my volunteers, most of them have assigned roles, and some of those roles include chief operating officer. Currently, I'm looking for a chief marketing officer, and how I'm expanding the Heat Squad is based on a chapter-based model. So once I recruit a volunteer in one town, they can spread the word of their town. They can use their connections in their town. And that's how I can really expand the Heat Squad. And how I can maintain the free service and eliminate all the financial barriers is by this chapter based model. And then for volunteers, they're not just gaining their volunteer hours, they're getting real life experiences connecting with seniors. They're getting they're learning communication skills, and that's how the Heat Squad's continuing to advance because there are so many benefits that come with helping seniors, and you're not just giving back to the community.
Yeah, and you just said that they're given volunteer hours. So in Canada, what you have to do is, apply with the government for all of that. So did you have to go through that process?
Yeah, so for Heat Squad, that's a really good question. For each senior center, all my volunteers have to fill out like a government document to make sure that they're not a criminal. And some of my volunteers, I'll use a platform called Volunteer Match to recruit them. There's a school here in the Boston area. It's called Northeastern. And Northeastern, some of their students actually are on these visas where in order to attend the school, they have to volunteer a certain amount of hours in their industries. A lot of these students, their industry is technology, and they're attending Northeastern where they have to fulfill their volunteer hours. So a lot of those students who are on these visas are actually coming to the Heat Squad to fulfill their hours and really give back to the community. And that's where kind of the government gets involved because I'm a 16-year-old and I'm signing government documents like confirming that they're giving back to the community and fulfilling their hours.
I find that that's really cool. And I just want to know, like, you have a good amount of volunteers. So what do you use any systems or structures to keep the organization organized and make sure everybody's completing their role?
Yeah, so how I manage my volunteers is I'll maintain regular contact with them. I'll reach out to them weekly, making sure that demand at their senior center is high because I want them to be engaging with seniors and gaining communication skills. And I'll log their hours in this. I have a spreadsheet where I'll just log their hours, and they're volunteering at their own hours, and I'll just record that in a spreadsheet, and that's mainly how I keep track of the whole system for heat.
I just kind of want to get into the negatives now, the reality. So, what were the biggest challenges in the early stages of building Heat Squad? Was it going to be credibility, logistics, or just building a team?
Yeah, it's great question, and one of the biggest challenges with Heat Squad was mainly credibility. I think you talked about this on my podcast when you hopped on. Being a 16-year-old student founder, you have to be like have the skills that are a lot older than your age, and I'm sure you talked about this on my podcast, and also another was logistics, just coordinating volunteers and senior centers. It took me like a week or two to just get organized, and I overcame this by just staying professional, being consistent, and just continuing to build strong relationships with my senior centers.
Were there ever moments where, you felt like you wanted to give up, but then you knew you had to keep going because you had that drive in you?
For Heat Squad, for Trading Card Playbook, I'll start there. Like getting my first gets, I wasn't the most outgoing person, so I had to persevere through that experience of just trying to get guests, and obviously recording my first episode. I was nervous like anybody would be for their first podcast episode. And for Heat Squad, since there was a lot of traction from the beginning, and I really noticed I realized at the beginning that this had a lot of potential. I really loved giving back to the communities. It really felt rewarding when I was getting to know my seniors and really helping them. And I think for Heat Squad, like, I really have fun doing it, and I really have fun giving back to the community.
Now let's kind of break down Heat Squad's current sales. So let's just make it clear how many senior homes do you work with today, and then do you generate any revenue?
Yeah, totally. We have 14 senior centers. This is all across the Boston area, and we're a nonprofit organization. We don't make money. We use a chapter-based model, as I mentioned before, where I'm recruiting a chapter leader in a town, and they'll continue to spread the word. And this chapter model actually this eliminates financial barriers, and I wanted to make Heat Squad very accessible to seniors, and revenue costs are very small. It's usually traveling's the main expense, and some future plans with Heat Squad is I really wanna do some fundraisers, and those fundraisers would be just maybe people could donate their used or old electronics, and we could give them out to seniors at these senior centers, and that's mainly about the scale and funding model for Heat.
Yeah. And if you do give out those devices, if that project does go through, do you plan on charging, the senior homes for that or just fully for free?
So that would be fully for free. I love giving back to the community. My team loves giving back to the community, and we want to make this very accessible to everybody, and that's what's going to keep it long lasting. And ultimately, the goal for Heat is I want to expand Heat all across the country, but I'm starting first in the Boston area. So maintaining free service is what's mainly going to be the driver, in my opinion, to be able to achieve those goals.
Yeah. So I find it really cool. And I think that something that's common in between both of your projects is that they're really mission driven into helping a community, even if they're both really different. So I think to wrap it all up, to help my community now, what advice would you give to other young people who want to start their own business?
Yeah. So my advice would be to start before you feel ready, actually. And both my podcast and Heat Squad, they started from personal observations and from the card store in Martha's Vineyard to just noticing my grandma needing technology help. They weren't huge plans, they weren't concrete ideas. If you just identify your niche, if you identify that problem that you genuinely care about, your motivation will stay strong even when challenges come. You don't need that concrete idea. You just need to persevere, work hard, and you need a willingness to learn. And that's ultimately, in my opinion, what you need to start your own business and really get into.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on today. I definitely learned a lot, especially for Spark Buddies.
Yeah. Thank you, Esther. No problem. Thanks for having me on.